Hey, what up, guys? Welcome back to Think Shank. We are coming in right at the conclusion of the Western Conference Finals, and oh my goodness, jam-packed with storylines and characters and character arcs, tight finishes, incredible finishes, gut-wrenching finishes. As a overall basketball fan, you just have to be thankful. I think that this is the kind of series that maybe we don't realize it, but something crystallized for a few different people and even teams that didn't even compete. GMs, head of financial and operational decisions, just a ton of implications coming out of tonight. Game 5, the Minnesota Timberwolves go down 124 to 103. Biggest blowout by far. Basically, wheels finally come off for Minnesota. More or less, game was over by the end of the first quarter for a variety of reasons. Luka, of course, pops off for 20 points, played the whole first quarter, but 20 points, just 2 assists, 2 rebounds, plus 16, 8 for 11 field goals, 4 for 6 from 3, 0 free throws. I mentioned this before about Luka's game plan here. He is second in the league in first quarter field goal attempts as well as points scored. And typically what he does is he comes out guns blazing just to see how the defense is going to react to him and how they're going to treat him, which makes sense. It's funny because even in doing that with such a talented offensive player, it can still work out this way when he just catches on fire from the jump. And I mean, multiple of those threes that he did make were actual logo threes, honestly, and really just set the tone. I'm at least going to come out putting pressure on the defense that I am ready and willing to shoot a lot tonight. Even if he doesn't make all of these, Wolves go down by 16 by the end of the first quarter. Basically, the wheels coming off for Minnesota. You had Anthony Edwards make a 3, but it was after the shot clock. You had back-to-back turnovers to end the first quarter by Naz Reid and Kyle. Ant misses some free throws. Yeah, it was pretty bad. I think what makes the most sense is zoom out from the jump and leave this one at the level of wheels came off from Minnesota. It was the culmination of many different factors. Let's talk about those and the broader playoff run, what we learned and what we think, as opposed to thinking about the game itself, because it's pretty non-insightful. I want to start off with the broadest high-level takeaways I had. Number one, by the end of the series, Dallas had demonstrated it had defined and maximized its brand of basketball, and Minnesota had not. Your two-headed monster with Kyrie and Luka, your turn, my turn, Kyrie demonstrating willingness to sacrifice stats, to make winning plays. Also, the beautiful chemistry between Luka, Lively, and Gafford. Also, Kyrie, PJ, Derek Jones, the Josh Greens, timely shots, and then the rest of the heavy lifting was going to be done by the other two. So you got your 2 guards, you got your 2 centers. The rest of the guys just need to hit timely shots, and it's pretty simple. And then Minnesota on their end, as most people expected, the offensive apparatus came to light as far as how non-up to snuff it was going up against a team with this level of solidified brand of basketball. In addition, I think it became very clear Minnesota was just too drained and too down on themselves after the first few games of the series, where they gave themselves a chance to win for sure one of the first 2 games. Second game, of course, had an 18-point lead and ended up choking it up. And the Luka game winner, extremely deflating. I don't think Minnesota truly in their heart of hearts expected to make it this far into the playoffs. When you think about the conditioning preparations, mental preparations for variance in shooting, the ups and downs and pendulum swings of the series, different matchups, and the mental fortitude to stay locked in to this extent for this long. Alexander Walker had a really good quote in the postgame.
I think just ultimately for us to want to win, like, we were 7 games away, and to win 7 more games that are high intensity, high pressure, always coming down to the wire. It's going to start with habits, consistency, and it's going to take a big jump, and it's going to take constant failure, a mental battle to tune out he say, she say, to tune out the media, to humble yourself to the team, to do whatever it takes to win.
At least 7 games short. Still, the width of the Grand Canyon is basically about the distance that it sounded like he was approximating by that. The overall playoff run, mentally, physically, psychologically for the team, disappointing start to the overall series as well. Offensive shortcomings getting stacked up against an offensive machine and a different offensive machine in Dallas. I think we just got a very stern lesson in why a lot of times you'll hear the deeper in the playoffs you go, the more it becomes about star power and guys being able to just make plays and ride off on talent and experience and all of kind of just like your individual abilities and skills. It became clear towards the end that it was simply Dallas's time. They were the best prepared team with the most amount of experience, hitting timely shots when they needed it, particularly down the stretch, weathering storms, not getting frustrated and causing different errors and fouls and turnovers and things like that. So that's overall my take on the overall series. Let's start with Dallas. Number 1 is star power. For the overall series, Luka, of course, got the Western Conference Finals MVP. 32, 9.5, and then a little more than 8. Insane numbers. Kyrie goes for 27, 3.5, and 4.5. Less playmaking responsibilities. I mean, 4.5 is still pretty solid, and then the rebounds is just going to be what it is. So you have 32 and 27 on average coming from your 2 leading guards every single night. That's just incredible. And to remind everybody, this is coming at the best ranked defense in the league. Doesn't necessarily mean that it matches up perfectly against the construction of Dallas, where Dallas has 2 lead guards, for example. They were able to ultimately triumph over Denver with its inside-out Jokic ball model. But Dallas is the complete opposite. Dallas is an outside in, starting with guards, and then we're going to work our way inside. Jaden McDaniels and Anthony Edwards trying to stop one of the 2 of Luka and Kyrie. But then you also, of course, have Anthony Edwards with the majority of the offensive burden on his shoulders as well. Not a perfect match at all for Dallas and Minnesota when it comes to offensive system and then defensive system to stop it. The legend of Lively, which is he has the 2nd highest on-off differential of a playoff run for a rookie ever. The first thing for me is the defense, because you're going up against Rudy Gobert, the second leading second chance point generator in the regular season. From a rebounding perspective, from a deterrence perspective, presented a lot of value on the defensive end. Everybody, of course, is going to fixate on the offensive end. Being a pick and roll partner with Luka and Kyrie, has incredible hands for a guy his size. And in a lot of ways, it felt like the yin to the yang of Rudy Gobert, where you have a little bit older, air quote, prime Rudy Gobert with a lot of size and length and defensive instinct and great communicator, etc. A lot of those standout skills are reflected in what Lively presents, but it's almost like Lively was put in the different NBA soon-to-be kids summer camp than Rudy, and Rudy went to the we are going to be old school and just have you be a defensive specialist that's going to just be tall and not worry at all about your offensive game or just overall coordination. And Lively, it feels like, could just be an athlete professionally in virtually any major American sport because he's just a supersized, again, athlete. Him and PJ Washington are just two incredible supersized athletes that just seem very, very coordinated for their size. Negatives, really not many. I mean, God, they just did great weathering the storm. I really don't have any negatives there to share. Overall takeaways for Dallas. Number one, I just want to remind everybody, Luka's not only just due, he's overdue, and we all should just be happy for him. 2 years ago, when he was 23 years old, I know Anna's 22, but when Luka was 23, he dragged a considerably worse Mavericks roster to the Western Conference Finals. Of course, lost in 5 games, but it was extremely and abundantly clear even at that point that Luka presented transcendent skill already, and that leads to the next point. Nico Harrison for MVP, the head of basketball operations over the Mavericks. I mean, upgraded the team to keep pace with Luka's ascension, and they nailed it. I watch a disgusting amount of basketball. I could have told you that PJ Washington would have been an incredible suitor on a billion different teams. Sacramento comes to mind. Very, very versatile. I mean, obviously there is risk there and whatnot, but credit to them for jumping on it and seizing it. It made total sense. Gafford coming out of Washington also made sense, but I think, again, strategically, the idea that if we actually upgrade our defense, which has just been bleeding for the last X number of years since Luka arrived, while sustaining our offensive pressure vertically, meaning top of the key with the guard power and then down to the rim with our lob threats and rim runners, that's just going to make it even easier for these kickouts and threes that we all love and adore. So credit to them. I just feel like Dallas's dominance is particularly demoralizing, and it makes sense that they obliterate teams by the end of the series. We saw this with Phoenix. We've seen this with other teams, particularly in the playoffs. A couple of reasons I think for this. Number one is that Kyrie and Luka have just quick twitch guard skills that they have mastered. Not excel at or are elite at. They are masters of quick pull-up shots. They have no real regions on the floor that they are weak at, and they can make a very, very high level of difficulty shots, meaning even the best defenses like Minnesota's can't actually stop them, which gets under your skin. On top of that, you have Luka whining all the time. I can totally understand that. And so when you get Luka foul baiting and he's the one complaining all game, it gets really fucking annoying. On top of that, you have kind of a weird mirroring thing where if Lively and Gafford make a basket, it's usually the loudest basket you've ever seen and just insane lobs, which I just still think are a bit more psychologically demoralizing because they're very aggressive and very loud, as well as the blocks themselves. So obviously blocks are just huge and they're just great for momentum and sparking energy. This is a very demoralizing style of dominance that Dallas presents. Next is, the more I think on it, the more that Kyrie's fit alongside of Luka makes sense, given what we've seen from this Dallas iteration over the past few years before Kai came. Very skilled guard, of course, can play alongside of Luka, can play off ball and on ball. He can take a brunt of the offensive load on his own shoulders, presents championship level experience, has played with a superstar, of course, before, and understands what goes into that. But this time, the biggest difference is the superstar is younger than him, and quite a bit as well. Luka just turned 25, Kai is 32. That's the key to all of this, I think. Kai had this kind of coming of age moment where obviously a Hall of Fame level player and talent in and of himself. And what does that mean? That means that he can recognize when others possess that level of skill and talent. The team being the way it is, having the potential that it has, coming off of all of the hype and all of the noise around surrounding him as more of a person than a player. I mean, he just took everything the exact way that you would want. I don't know what kind of ayahuasca he tried or what religion he subscribes to. I think it's Buddhism now, right? Presenting the Zen and positive energy to keep Luka calm. Luka calls that out all the time about keeping guys calm and positive. And if you know anything about Luka Doncic over his pretty short NBA career, it's that being calm and not being frustrated is not necessarily his innate strong suit. clearly with the referee whining. So even that is just kind of perfect. So Kyrie recognizing the opportunity here to be a phenomenal mentor with long-lasting implications on the league, mentor on one of the league's already best offensive players of all time. Ultimately, I just wouldn't be surprised if we end up someday with Luka retiring, saying on the record, yeah, having Kyrie on that early Mavericks team when we won our first championship, that was the best thing to ever happen to me. I could literally see and hear that happening right now. But not only is he producing on the court, but I still think his biggest impact is off of the court. It's in the locker room. It's in the huddles. It's in the timeouts. It's in the huddles on the court where they're encouraging guys and keeping everyone calm and focused. Luka calls it out. Kyrie talks about it all the time. Genuinely trying to think of comparisons for this type of mentor role in leadership, and I don't know. This is one of the most genuine, authentic leaders in the entire league right now, paired up with one of the greatest players probably to play the game. So there you go. All right, guys, that is it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.